You know, when you go on holiday, you've been planning it for months, you've been saving up, you've been so busy getting everything organized and finishing up tasks and completing things. Finally, you get on the plane, you fly to your beautiful destination, you get out, you get into the hotel, you go out by the pool. It's a beautiful day. Everything around you is gorgeous. You breathe in the fresh air and you say to yourself, I have arrived. I am here. I'm finally here at my destination. Ah, look around me. Look at those beautiful flowers over there. Look how clean and beautiful the pool is, how inviting it seems, the friendly smile of that person over there. Look at my beautiful hotel room. Oh, how much fun I'm going to have. How happy I am to be here. I have arrived. That feeling of arriving, that's what I want to talk about in this podcast today. Because it's all very well to arrive at your holiday destination and feel that sense of satisfaction and completion and wholeness, having made it. But when do we arrive in our everyday lives? When do we give ourselves permission to have that feeling of arriving? I'm here. I am here. I am loving this moment. You know, when do we really give ourselves permission to feel that way? It's like when we look on social media, for example, or YouTube, or sometimes on the TV or whatever, we see people who seem to have arrived and we feel jealous often or not enough because we feel like we're still getting there. We're still in the process of making it, but we see these people who seem to have arrived and we're like, oh, I'm not there yet. You know, I'm still getting there. I'm still getting to the destination. And that's the illusion, isn't it? But that's certainly a reality that a lot of us live in. We live in this reality of, I haven't made it yet. They have. I'm jealous. I want to be like them. I want to arrive in my life. Our general society, usually our upbringing, just the conditioning and the programming of living in this world at the moment means that we've taken on the subconscious belief that we need to get somewhere to be worthy, to be good enough, to have made it, to have arrived. And so it's almost like we're on this constant and perpetual search, seeking and searching and trying to get somewhere, to achieve something, to have something, to be someone in order to feel that feeling, I have arrived in this moment. But the seeking and the searching is almost like it's something that doesn't end. It's something that will never have an end. It's a perpetual energy. When do we actually put an end to the seeking and the searching and actually arrive? This is the question I am putting out there to you today, and I'm opening up to discuss. So in the last couple of podcasts, we've been talking about living more from the heart and how when we practice gratitude and open up our hearts, we actually open up this coherence in our body, which means the open heart changes the chemical composition of our body, changes the way our organs are relating to each other, harmonizes everything together, gets our heart and our brain working as a team, which opens up this higher brain function. And we just become a much more efficient vehicle, this body does. And as a reflection of that, when we open up our heart, we also start to connect to the wider network of energy that is always around us. So the unified field, you could call it, this energy that connects everyone and everything. As we open our hearts, we gain access to this wider network, to this wider us. And so heart-centered living, or the practice of gratitude, when I'm appreciating this moment right now, is actually the practice of arriving. And this is the difference, right? We've been programmed and conditioned to habitually search and seek, coming from a place of being up here in the mind, feeling cut off, feeling separate, analyzing everything from the outside, looking at everything as a separated being. And in that energy, we feel that something's missing. We feel cut off. We feel alone. And so we're searching, we're seeking to find that answer to bring us back into wholeness. Yet when we move into the heart, we move into a feeling of wholeness, and we appreciate what is and what we are. So it's the practice of arriving. When we're up in our heads and cut off from the heart, we often perpetuate illusions, and we live in this reality that we've kind of made up. I'm going to describe what I mean by that in a moment. However, when we come down into our heart and actually open up into this larger self and feel connected in this moment, like we've arrived, it restores our sanity and it brings wholeness back to our being. So in order to describe what I mean by that, like creating illusions, how we're doing that, and what I really mean by that, there's a really good analogy that's been going around for probably centuries, the snake and the rope analogy. There's many different ways of describing this analogy, so I'm going to describe it like this. So there's a man walking home one night. He's walking down a dirt road, and the sun is nearly down, so it's just very, very dimly lit as he's walking along. At the side of the road, he sees a snake. It's all coiled up, and he freezes in terror. Oh my God, there's a snake. Adrenaline takes over his whole body. He's just frozen there, staring at the snake in absolute fear and fright. And then some part of his mind says, just shine your torch on it, just shine your light on it. And so he pulls his phone out of his pocket, turns on the torch of the phone and shines it over and sees, oh, it's actually a rope. It's actually just a rope coiled up at the side of the road. And of course, phew, relief floods through his traumatized body. And he starts to be able to breathe again and relax again and carry on his way slowly, feeling better and better the further he gets and the more he walks away from that snake, or supposedly the rope. But as he moves away from that situation and restores his senses, he feels a lot better. So this is an analogy that has been used time and time again by different kind of traditions, and so it's very relatable, isn't it, in our own lives, that we see things not as they are often, and we get really frightened about that. But when we turn on the light and look again, we realize, oh, it's actually okay. I kind of made that up. Like, that came from me, right? It wasn't actually the truth of the reality of the situation. So why I want to give you this analogy is because it points out that when we are up in our heads and cut off from our hearts, we tend to make things up. We tend to not see the whole picture as it is. We tend to just see things as we think they are, or as our fear thinks it is, if you understand what I mean. And when we come into the heart, because we open into this feeling of connection with everything, this feeling of courage and this feeling of oneness, we tend to see things sanely. We tend to see things as they really are, rather than what we fear that they are, coming from maybe some past traumas or things that have happened in our lives. So when that man was walking home, it was quite dark. It was very dim. And this is saying that when we are in our heads, we are walking around in a world that is not very well lit. It is dark. It's hard to kind of decipher truth from illusion. It's a dimly lit world. But when we're connected in with our hearts and we're open in that space of gratitude and appreciating the very moment we're in and living in that energy of caring for others and empathy for others and things like that, the heart is open, we're connected, and that open heart is the illumination that lights up the situations that we are in to provide that wider context and that sanity that we need to interpret those situations sanely and kind of correctly, So when that man turned his torch on his phone, he kind of opened his heart in that moment. Okay, let me check in with my sanity here. Let me open my heart, let me tune in. What's really going on here? Turn on the light. Oh, yeah, it's okay. It's just a rope. It's all good. And I can relax. Phew, and carry on with my walk. So it's a good analogy in this situation because it shows that using our hearts is such a wise and sane and productive and logical and practical thing to do. Whereas walking around up in our heads just in that cut off energy is going to create a lot of problems that aren't even there. And if we find ourselves in those situations, to come back to the heart is such a wise thing to do, to illuminate the situation with your heart, to bring the situation into the loving context of your heart so that you can understand it more clearly. The other thing that's kind of interesting to point out here is that when we're up in our heads and cut off from our hearts, in this analogy, we're walking around in a dimly lit world where it's hard to decipher illusion from truth. And this also creates that constant need to search. If we can't really see things clearly, we're always wanting and thinking we need to find something. We need something more. There's something we haven't seen yet. I need to look. I need to find. I need to search. I need to get. I'm not enough right now. Whereas when we're illuminating our world with the love we feel in our heart and the connection we feel with the present moment, we feel that sense of finding. We feel that sense of arriving. So that need to constantly search just dissipates away, and we feel more and more that I can just enjoy this moment right now. And isn't that what we're all really looking for? But trying to blame it on, I need this in order to feel like that. I need to get to this in order to give myself permission to feel like I've already arrived. I need to find that relationship. I need to make this money. But what if we could arrive right now, even though we don't have all that lined up? What if we practiced arriving? What could change? So let's look at an everyday example of the snake and the rope analogy and how this plays out in our everyday lives. If you'd like to see the rest of this video or listen to it in podcast form, then please go to my Patreon and sign up to receive all of the amazing, amazing podcasts and meditations that are available for you there. There's also a monthly Zoom spiritual development group that you get as part of that. I'd love to see you in there and support you with sticking to your own personal growth, your own spiritual development. Much love.